message with you. And in return, we ask, in what way now may we be of service to you? You may begin, if you wish, with your questions and comments and dialogues.
Good morning, Bashar.
Good day, good day.
How are you today?
Perfect, as in every day. And you?
I am well. I'm very excited. I'm all the way from Australia. It's very early here.
Oh, I'm all the way from Essassani.
So exciting. I have a couple of questions for you,
Yes.
if you wouldn't mind.
I do not mind.
I want to talk to you about the timeline splitting. I know that we're in the process of them eventually crystallizing and not being able to see other people in our own, our own reality that do not vibrate with our frequency.
Yes.
I want to talk about personal relationships like our family and friends. Do those people who, if they're not on the same frequency and the same timeline as you, do they completely disappear, or do we get a different version of them?
It can be either.
Okay.
It depends on what their path is and what they're choosing in multiple realities. Sometimes they simply have a path that doesn't necessarily require them to have a version in the new reality you may have shifted to, and therefore you may never see them again. Sometimes they may have a version and you will interact with that version that is more compatible with the new reality. It just depends on their particular path.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Another one, I know because I've been watching lots of your transmissions from all over the years. When we go to sleep, I'm aware that we wake up in spirit. I want to know what your take is when we're asleep in our form, what we're experiencing when we have what we call nightmares here.
Generally, although there can be many reasons, generally what you are doing is processing the negative beliefs and fear-based beliefs within your physical mind to make yourself aware, in a sense, on a safer level, that you have these beliefs, so that when you wake up in physical reality, you can explore them and understand what they symbolized, what they mean to you, and it gives you a clue as to what it is to investigate within yourself about any fear-based or negative beliefs you may still be unconsciously holding on to.
Okay, cool. So we're not witnessing some negative timelines or anything?
Oh, you may be. You may be. It depends upon the dream. But again, for the most part, even if that's the case, it's still showing you a connection you may be creating to those things so that you can decide for yourselves whether to use them in a valuable way, learn from them in a valuable way, or process them in a way that is valuable to you here and now.
Okay, cool. Is there any guidance that you and your civilization may have when it comes to releasing those, I guess, subconscious beliefs, I guess?
Well, as we have said, yes, many, many times, we've given you the techniques of asking yourself the question, what does this mean to me? Why would I choose to believe this is true for myself or about myself in this circumstance or situation? Just dig down deeply and be willing to investigate whether you're holding on to something that doesn't serve you, and be willing to hear the answers and ask yourself, if I did move forward in the way that I prefer to, what am I afraid might happen? That will usually reveal the negative belief or fear-based belief to you that you can then work with.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This one's probably going to be a little bit odd. I've been pondering it for a while.
All right.
As the human species, when we're thinking about, obviously, your civilization, other species as a whole, just in general,
Yes.
do you guys do you feel that or see that? Is that kind of like one of the start of like the window of open contact?
It can be, but again, and again, as every individual is different, if there is a need for someone to be aware of it, they will be aware of it. If there isn't, they won't. But it will still serve the purpose of allowing you to experience a connection.
Yeah, cool. I've been having a couple of experiences alongside one of my really close friends. There's moments throughout our day where randomly on our right side of our eyesight, even though we're awake, we kind of get this blurred vision and we can see what I would describe as like white or blue energy.
Yes.
Kind of looks like when you see heat coming off a hot surface, like that aura.
Yes, we understand.
Can you tell me a little bit about what that may be?
Well, yes. First of all, realize you're surrounded by different dimensions of energy constantly. You may not be aware of them typically. But when you start to explore and expand your consciousness, you also change the sensitivity of your senses. And therefore your senses can begin to perceive things quite often first out of the corner of your eye, so it's not too much of a shock until you get used to it, and can bring it into focus right before you. But it's very typical that as you expand your consciousness, you can see what was heretofore invisible and make it visible to you, and get used to the idea that there's more going on around you than you thought.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all I have today. Thank you so much for your time.
It is our passion and our pleasure. We thank you as well.
Thank you so much. Love to you guys. See you.
Good day.
Good day.
Hi, everybody. This is Jay from Souk, Vancouver Island. I was hoping that you could give us a handful of words that, in your opinion, we could redefine as a collective and on an individual level as well. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and good day, and Nania. Thanks, guys. Bye.
All right. As we have said, doubt is not a lack of trust. It's a trust, a 100% trust in something you don't prefer. So you're always trusting. There's no such thing as a lack of trust. There is, however, a trust in lack. So that's a reversal, paradoxical definition that will allow you to always know you don't have to learn to trust. You just have to decide what it is you're trusting in. Depression is simply the negative perspective and definition of compression, which is a natural state when where you know you cannot find the answers you seek outside, you go within. You collapse within into a state where you investigate and examine yourself and come out redefining yourself as a new person. If you look at it as a natural state of compression, specifically for that purpose of finding out how to let go of beliefs that don't serve you and emerging as a truly new person, then you will not experience that sensation as depression, which is the negative side, thinking that something must be wrong with you just because you may feel like you're withdrawing from society for a moment. It's a natural thing to do when you need to go internal within yourself and find the answers that you seek. A walk-in is not a different soul coming into the same body and another soul leaving to make room for it. You are filled up with yourself. There's no room for anything else to be there. And if you decide to leave, nothing else really comes in the way that you mean it with respect to the concept of a walk-in. There are other things that can happen that we will address another time. But a walk-in is simply a shift in vibrational resonance, an ascension of the frequency of your own soul to another level that then demands a different expression of personality to come through to represent that shift in the vibration to a higher level of your soul. So it's the same soul expressing itself through a new personality, but it is the same being that was there before, just expressing itself on a different level. That's a walk-in. Ascension is simply the process, especially by following your passion or anything you love to do, or being in love, where you raise your frequency to another level that gives you a chance to receive higher frequency information and experiences and connections from higher dimensional realms. Now, ascension is not just something that is going to happen at a particular moment. You're always ascending if you're following your passion, if you're expanding your consciousness, if you're exploring ideas of spiritual reality. Ascension is an ongoing process of raising your frequency. You can lower it as well by the choices that you make, but that can still be part of ascension, because ascension can be the idea of going up and down and up and down and up and down in a straight line, or in a more positive way, you can understand that if you learn the lessons from the times you go down in vibration, that then when you learn those lessons, you will go up to a higher level the next time. So going up and down is a constant rising overall, even though you may go up and down in that process. But ascension, on its most basic term, is simply the raising of your frequency from one level to another.
Hello.
And good day.
Good day to you, Bashar. Thank you for seeing me.
It is our passion and our pleasure to do so. Thank you for the co-creation. What would you like to discuss?
So my first question then, last time we spoke, you advised me to ask myself what am I afraid of would happen if I were to truly be myself and to truly let go.
Yes.
The answer I received was that I am afraid that all the pieces of me would fall apart and be lost, that I'm identifying so strongly with my labels.
Well, all right. But if you understand the whole concept from a holistic perspective of being yourself, why would you lose anything that was actually relevant to actually being yourself? Anything that would drop away would be those things that are no longer relevant for who you are. So you may have been afraid to lose the familiarity, thinking that you would wind up not knowing who you were, but that's contradictory to the very definition of being your true self, which would open up your awareness to the point where you would know exactly who you are.
Do you have any advice for those of us that feel so strongly attached to these things that we think we are on that journey?
Well, continue your process of examining who you actually are compared to who you think you are, and allow yourself the time and the space to go through that process. You don't have to rush this. You can take your time, the whole point of your life anyway. And so explore as you wish, but as we often suggest and encourage you to do, follow the formula, because it contains all the things and tools necessary to reflect back to you whatever it is you need to look at, whatever it is you need to process, whatever it is you need to let go of, to gradually or quickly become more and more of who you are. So there's no hurry up about this. You're not racing against time or anything. You're an eternal, immortal, in that sense, being, indestructible. What's your hurry?
Very true. The second question, I guess, then would be asking for advice on working on not judging, not just with people, but in situations. I know that I have followed that rule of everything, no matter what it is to my benefit. But is there advice in letting go of like the judgments of people, places, and things as good or bad?
All right. Well, you have just actually given yourself the answer, but you have maintained the contradiction within it for some reason of your own, which is a belief unto itself. You've actually said, I know that everything can be used to my benefit. If you truly know that, what would there be to judge? Judgment wouldn't be an option. It wouldn't make sense. So because you are still judging, even while you say you know you can use everything to your benefit, clearly you don't fully understand or believe that concept yet.
Yes, you're right.
I know.
Is there any advice on deepening of that understanding?
Yes. Stop asking for outside advice and just know that you understand more than you think if you would only act on it fully.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You're worthy. You are worthy or you wouldn't exist. So you're capable of allowing yourself to understand these concepts and practicing these concepts until you fully ingrain them within who you are. So when you hear yourself, learn to say the thing you say you believe, but learn to pay attention to whether you actually believe it in your actions and responses and emotions. And if you recognize that there's a contradiction there, work on that and find out where the contradiction is coming from, because it can only be coming from another negative belief, that you don't quite have the worthiness to truly buy into and believe what you say you know would serve you. So explore that.
Thank you. So we've been taught in our schools that, we have such diversity here on Earth.
Yes.
Within the human race alone.
Yes, it's beautiful.
We were taught that the reason that in the human race specifically, why there are so many differences, because at the beginning we started migrating and then we adapted to the climate. And this always seemed a little unsatisfactory to me. Is there more to it?
To some degree, that is true. You have different kinds of genetics in you. You're all hybridized from different kinds of genetics throughout the galaxy. But the idea is that when you move into different climates, the climates can trigger some of those deep genetic differences that exist within you so that you will adapt to the different climates because of the genetics that exist within all of you that are from different places. And therefore the climate, it may be the idea of the trigger, but the genetics within you come from many different places and among the stars. And that's why that happens to the degree that it does on your planet. Other planets may experience this to some degree, but not so many as deeply. You are an extremely hybridized civilization.
Wow.
For example,
yes.
on my own world. Now, we don't really have the differences in climate around the planet that you do. We're mostly temperate and mild, but there are some differences here and there between the idea of a north and south and so on and so forth. You might see a slight, very slight, if you know what to look for, slight variation in some of the beings on my planet that constantly live in a slightly different climate. But it's not quite so apparent as it is on your planet because we don't have quite the same kind of mix of genetics being engineered as a race as we were that you do by receiving different genetics from different extraterrestrial beings at different times for different purposes. Plus, of course, the panspermia idea of originally receiving genetic material on your planet from different places in the universe that gave the soup, so to speak, the mix of genetic material on your planet already much more differentiated than on a lot of other planets. It just depends on your location as to what arrives on your planet that begins the process of how much genetic variation you can actually experience. Plus then the introduction of different extraterrestrial genetics through encounters and different kinds of experiences can also add to the mix. So you have a greater variety on your planet of genetic material than we do. And thus the differences that climate can affect are much greater and of a greater range than you would experience on our planet. But there are many differences on other planets as well.
That's very interesting. So for the next question, it's actually about channeling.
Yes.
I found that while channeling, I have a lot of experiences where it seems like there's multiple entities trying to speak at the same time.
You may be aware of the fact that there are multiple entities you're connecting to. It's not that they're trying to speak at the same time. It's just that you're aware that they're there and have something to say. That's more coming from your side than the idea that they're trying to speak at the same time. On that level, they would know how to coordinate their speech to follow one another in an appropriate way. You're assuming it's all coming from the same source or different sources at the same time because you're aware of them at the same time.
I see.
So you'll sort it out. You'll sort it out.
Okay. I've had experiences that, from what you just said, I've created then, where I've had like I'm channeling for one entity, and then another one comes in and says something kind of like different, and then the other one's like, "Shut up! I'm not like not shut up, but like
again,
don't listen to that one."
It's being filtered through your physical mind as to how you're interpreting what's being given to you.
That makes sense.
Yes, I know. That's why I said it.
Right.
So we thank you for today. Go and have some fun.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Good day.
Good day.
Hello, Bashar. I would like to get more explanation out of you about the mind-body relationship. You've said that the mind exists within the body within the soul. Right. But that's pretty vague. I think. Like, when you say mind, does that include the higher mind, or is it just the physical mind? And as a healer, like, my experiences definitely would agree with the idea of the mind existing with, like, the physical mind existing within the body. That much seems very clear. But logically, I still grapple with that one because our physical health is so impacted by the beliefs and definitions that we have in our mind. So it would appear that the body is subject to the mind, even though I know that can't be, that the mind has to be subject to the body. And I would love some great examples, or at least one good example of how the mind is subject to the body. That would be helpful. Please comment. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, in some cases, you're accurate, and in some, you're sort of mixing your metaphors. But to start simply, often, in most cases, when we say body, mind, and spirit, the spirit part is what represents the higher mind in that definition or in that example. Although we understand that spirit can be a different thing, although it still includes the higher mind. So the idea is that, yes, your body can be conditioned by the mind, and the mind can be conditioned by the body in a sort of cyclic feedback loop. What you believe yourself to be, what you think of yourself as, can have an effect on how the body behaves. And how the body behaves can reinforce or have an effect on who you think you are, or what you believe about yourself to be true. So that kind of works in tandem with one another. The idea is that the higher mind is above and beyond the idea of the physical mind. Physical mind is simply that which allows you to have a physical experience expressed as the idea of a physical body, because that's just a projection of consciousness, as all physical reality is. So the body is, in a sense, the spirit projecting a portion of itself in a certain way that experiences itself as a physical being. And in order to experience oneself as a physical being, you have to have an organizational pattern of energy within that physical being that represents the physical mind, so it can be aware consciously of the experience it is having. The soul, as we have said, is sort of like unfired clay. The spirit is the ceramic, that is the fired clay, that represents the particular specific experience you're having as a particular physical identity, and therefore is contained within the oversoul and the soul, ultimately. But the higher mind is a splitting of the soul into the non-physical guiding higher mind, and the physical mind having the physical experience. Once the physical mind exists, then the body is subject to the belief systems in the physical mind, and again, the body can reinforce those particular physical beliefs within the physical mind. We do not know if this is a clear enough explanation for you, since we're not interacting with you. But generally speaking, you have the oversoul, the soul, splitting itself into the non-physical higher mind and the physical mind, which then can have an experience of creating the spirit that is then once again taking that specific physical life experience and incorporating it back into the soul's experience and feeding that back into the oversoul's experience, which feeds it back into all that is.
Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
So nice to connect with you again. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity.
It is our passion and our pleasure. Please speak up.
Sure. I also want to thank you for that monologue. My heart is definitely racing after listening to that.
Oh, all right.
I had some questions for you that are a little off topic, if that's okay.
All right. That's all right.
So the first question actually had two parts to it, and it mainly has to do with state of being.
Yeah.
Lately, I've been feeling that I'm able to embody that frequency, that energy of my future desired self, who in this case is a rap star. That's one of my biggest dreams is to be a successful rap star one day.
All right. Now, one moment. Let me stop you.
Sure.
If rap is your passion, don't add all sorts of insistences or conditions on how that needs to express yourself when you use the word successful.
Okay.
Because the meaning you may be giving that may not be, it may be, but it may not be the meaning that actually serves you. So you are successful when you are simply expressing your passion in any way, shape, or form. Don't necessarily limit it by putting conditions on what you think being a successful rap star looks like for you.
Mm.
Watch
Okay.
your insistences.
So I'm really glad you said that. Is that maybe my negative ego coming into play, thinking that
It's mostly your training. It's mostly your training saying, well, this is the only way that can actually look. Just relax that definition and be open to the idea that there may be other ways in which that can be represented as successful. You don't know.
just because I can't imagine it doesn't mean it's not, there's not some higher, maybe reality.
You use what you can imagine. You use what representation you do have as a way of getting you excited, but you drop that particular representation and stay in the state of being to allow the higher mind to bring you the way that actually works best for you. And it might be what you envision, but it might not be. So don't limit it by insisting on the particular way in which you've been taught to think. Just use it to your advantage to get you excited, but don't insist on that picture because it could happen some other way that could be many times better.
Yeah. Again, I'm really glad you said that. It feels like I've heard you say in the past it's about state of being.
Yes.
And it seems like I keep making my goal or my state of being conditional on.
Yes.
Okay.
On having it to look like a certain thing in order for you to determine that you have been successful. Let me put it to you this way through an example.
Okay.
Let's just say all of a sudden synchronicity, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, I'm just opening your mind up a little bit.
Sure.
Let's say synchronicity suddenly brings you an opportunity to arrive at a children's hospital. And in that children's hospital, you do your rap for those children to allow them to feel more excited, more healthy, more uplifted. Now, what if that's all it turns out to be? Would you not know that you would still be getting absolute joy out of that, even though it's not traditionally what many people would think of as a traditional music career?
Right. Right.
So,
no, I absolutely, yeah.
All right. So allow for different ways in which you could be of service by expressing your joy and your passion and your gift. I'm not again saying it has to limit itself to any one way. You may be doing it 12 different ways. But the idea is that if you only insist that one way is the way, you will never experience the idea of the 11 other ways it could also be.
That's deep, Bashar. I'm really glad. My follow-up question to that is like irrelevant now, but I'm trying to process what you just said.
Oh, it's not that difficult. You understand the concept that I'm telling you.
Yeah, I think it comes down to this fear that I have. Actually, I have a couple of fears, but one is that, I'm going to follow the formula, act on my passion, make music, and then I'm going to be 40 years old one day, living under a bridge or something. And
well, that's extremely interesting that you would pick that kind of a scenario as the logical outcome of following your passion, which means you have a completely contradictory definition of what your passion is all about. Because you're saying, if I follow my passion, something that's not representative of my passion might happen. That's an absolute impossibility. Or even if it did happen physically that way, it would actually be representative of your passion and you wouldn't mind it. So the idea is to trust that the state of being will express itself through any outcome that is truly representative of your passion, no matter